All right, let's talk about something that I think everyone in data deals with. How do you take those messy, chaotic files that land on your desk and turn them into something structured, trustworthy, and, well, actually valuable?
So I want you to ask yourself this. Right now, is your data a true asset? Or does it kind of feel more like a liability? You know what I'm talking about. Have you ever tried to reproduce a model's results from 6 months ago and just couldn't? Or wasted days hunting for that one bad data point that's poisoning your whole analysis? Yeah, that's the razor-thin line between an asset and a liability. The way out of this chaos actually starts with a really simple but incredibly powerful idea, giving every single piece of data a unique, unchangeable identity. You can think of it like a digital fingerprint, right? A permanent mark that guarantees where it came from and that it hasn't been tampered with from the very second it's created.
So the formal name for this is the contribution fingerprint, or CF. Now, this isn't just some random ID number. It's a unique identifier that's cryptographically generated from the data's content and its metadata. And what that means is, if any little thing changes, even a single bit, you get a totally new fingerprint. This is the bedrock of trust for everything else we're going to talk about.
You know, the best way to think about a contribution fingerprint is like a serial number on a product. Just like a serial number lets you track one specific iPhone from the factory floor all the way to a customer, a CF lets you track one tiny piece of data, a label, a sensor reading, you name it, through its entire life.
Okay, so every single piece of our data now has its own unique serial number. Awesome. But now what? How do we actually assemble all these little fingerprinted parts into something that's coherent and actually useful? Well, that's where the data assembly line comes in. It's a clear, methodical process for going from those raw individual bits to a versioned, reliable dataset. And this whole assembly line really breaks down into 3 main stages. First, we bundle our fingerprinted contributions into what we call data assets. Then we pin those assets into a version dataset, which is like creating a stable snapshot in time. And finally, we record the entire history of everything we just did, giving us a complete lineage that you can always go back and audit.
Let's look at step 1. It's all about curation. A data asset is so much more than just a folder full of files. It's built with purpose, with really specific quality rules. Think of it like this. It's the difference between a random pile of lumber and a prefabricated kit for building a house. One is just raw material. The other is a structured, purposeful, and totally reusable component.
Now for the second step, we take one or more of these high-quality assets and we pin them to create a version dataset. And here's the magic. Any change, whether it's to the data itself or the rules you use to select it, automatically creates a brand new version. And crucially, the old versions are never, ever changed or deleted. They stick around forever, giving you a permanent, auditable record of your data's history. And that brings us to the final piece of this puzzle, lineage. The whole history, from those individual contribution fingerprints, all the way up to the assets and the datasets, it's all stored as something called a directed acyclic graph, or a DAG. It sounds complicated, but it's perfect because it maps how the data flows forward through time. It lets us trace the complete journey of any data point, making every single decision completely explainable.
So we've seen how this whole assembly line works, but what's the real payoff? What do you actually get from all this? Let's dive into the 4 core guarantees that a true data asset gives you, because this is what really matters. This is what it's all been building to, right? We've talked about fingerprints and assembly lines. So what does this system actually deliver? What promises can you count on when you build your work on this kind of foundation?
You get 4 big ones. First up, determinism. That's the guarantee that if you use the same inputs and the same rules, you will always get the exact same output. No surprises. Second, immutability. This ensures that past versions of your data can never be changed, giving you a tamper-proof history. Third, full explainability. This is the ability to just ask the system and find out exactly why any piece of data was included or excluded. And finally, referential integrity. This makes sure all your data is correctly linked up. No more orphan data floating around.
Let's just focus on immutability for a second, because this one is a game changer. Imagine you're in a regulatory audit and you have to justify a business decision from a year ago. With an immutable data asset, you can just instantly pull up the exact data set, let's call it version 1.7.3, and the exact rules that were used. Bam, a complete verifiable record. That's a level of confidence that is just impossible with a bunch of loose files.
So let's bring this all home. What we've just walked through is really a fundamental transformation in how we should be thinking about and managing our data.
The old way, that's the data file.
You can't trace where it came from, it's fragile, and its meaning can be pretty ambiguous. The new way is the data asset. Its entire history is provable, it's immutable so it can't be accidentally changed, and it's fully explainable. You're making the switch from a liability to a genuine, reliable asset. I want to leave you with this definition because it just nails it. A true data asset is a versioned, proofable, contributor-attributed record that can be audited from any point in its history. When you get to this point, you're not just managing data anymore. You're building a foundation of trust that can seriously transform your entire organization.